Alright, people, midweek report time. So, good bit to get into. We'll start with the most breaking news. I've already done a video on it, so I'm not going to labour the point on this for too long, maybe a minute or two. Fury Usyk, it's $69.99 in the US. So in the US, you're paying basically $70. In the UK, as far as I'm aware, as far as I believe, it's £23.99, £24 in euros, certainly with the zone. It's on the zone, it's on Sky Sports, and it's also on TNT Sports. So it is your preference. Now, what I would say is, someone did point this out, that if you do get the TNT version, this is one thing that the zone and Sky Sports may have in their favour, is that with TNT, it may, and they can be, or they all, to be fair, they all can be. The three of them can. Sky can be biased. The Zone can be very biased. TNT can be biased. They probably will be very biased towards Fury, most likely. So I bear that in mind. Now, I'm probably just going to get TNT, just because I'll be doing a watch along, so I won't be listening to the commentary. But that is something you want to factor in. You know, does anyone remember the Sky days? And Joshua was headlining. I mean, so Sky were the first, Adam Smith and Matthew Macklin, when Joshua fought Park. That's the first time I ever had to mute a commentary. It was so bad. So bear that in mind. That is a very, very good point. Judging by the DAZN app, it's $23.99. So there you go. It's up to the buyer at the end of the day. Whichever one floats your boat. If you're a DAZN guy, go for it. If you're a TNT guy, go for it. If you're into Sky Sports, you go ahead and go for it. It'll be shown. And as I said, I don't think I've ever seen this happen where you've three major networks all showing the fight. People are interested. The Saudis really have brought the world of boxing together in a way, at least a part of it anyway, because I certainly never would have thought I'd ever see the day Eddie and Frank are putting shows on together, and they seem like best buds now. Hell has long since frozen over. I don't know what he did. Probably just got a shitload of money and was like, there you go. That could solve a lot of problems, it seems. But we're seeing things I never thought certainly I'd see in the immediate future. We're seeing them. With regards Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk, well, it's not even that, right? With regards more so Team Fury, we saw John Fury a couple of days ago give an interview at Boxing Social where he was less than happy about Carl Froch. And apparently that video got removed. And I think Carl Froch was saying, what was it, re-edited or something like that. So that's interesting. I wonder why it would have been. But Carl Froch made a video yesterday, and boy, he was not pulling any punches on John Fury. He's less than happy, to say the least. And, you know, John Fury, he's been doing, it's his stick almost now at this stage, where it's like, I'm going to call these people out, I'm going to say this, they're all afraid of me. I mean, this is the guy who was saying that Sugar Hill Stewart, the next time he sees him, we're going to have problems. He's still in Team Fury, he's still training Tyson. There doesn't seem to be nothing seems to have happened. So did John Fury and him have that meeting? I seriously doubt it. John Fury is all bark and no bite. That seems to be how he is. He just seems to be all bark and no bite. He is the sort of guy, when he walks into a room and just say you don't know him, or you look at the Misfit shows that he goes to, where they're boxing, but like they're not exactly going to be, you know, intimidating people. They're not exactly intimidating guys, a lot of the guys doing those Misfit shows. John Fury comes into a room and he has that loud, you know, very brazen character. He's real loud. He's talking and saying, I'll fight any man, this, that and the other. And for some people, just that bark is enough to put people in their place. It's not even, they don't even need to see him do anything. It's that loud, brazen voice, and he's the loudest guy in the room. As the saying goes, the loudest guy in the room is more often than not the weakest. But they hear that bark and they're like, all right, stay away from him. And I think that's what he hopes to do, to go into a room, just be loud, and everyone is like, oh, stay away from him. But there are fighters like Carl Froch, who are significantly younger, had much better careers, albeit at a different weight, but still had much better careers. And the only person I've ever really seen John Fury square up to, a boxer, is Carl Frampton. Carl Frampton's 5'3". At a push. Seriously. Carl Frampton is tiny. I mean, I've actually seen Carl Frampton. He is tiny. Really tiny. And great fighter, don't get me wrong, great fighter, but very tiny compared to John Fury. Oh, easy to do that, square up to Carl Frampton. But, you know, you said, Tony Bennett, why is he being cheeky? Well, did you ever find out why he's being cheeky? I doubt it. Carl Froch's video was excellent. He talked about so much. He mentioned the fact that, you know, Fury got 4 wins over world champions. He has 11 wins, saying that if they did ever see each other, John and Carl Froch, that John would probably end up shaking his hand rather than doing anything else. And I tend to agree with that. I genuinely do. Now, I haven't actually, before I get into this, let's talk a bit about the fight this coming weekend, Dan Aziz versus Joshua Buatsi. Have the actual preview recorded already. Probably just going to upload that in the morning. I've been a bit busy, haven't had a chance to really finish it off, but I have it done there. And, you know, by Sky cards, it's not that bad. You know, I mean, that seems to be a good thing, saying that about a Sky card nowadays, where you're like, it's not that bad. You know, that's not exactly good to be saying that, you know, like, how's the food? It's not that bad. Well, it's not good, is it? You know, if you said it, you just say it. Dan Aziz, Joshua Buatsi is a good fight. Adam Azim is on there. Caroline Dubois, Ben Whittaker, Jamie KTV. I think that's how you say it. I think KTV. TKV. Konstantin Dobyshenko. Now that guy, Konstantin Dobyshenko, fought Moses Atelma earlier in the year, and Atelma handled him pretty much with one hand. He hurt his hand in that fight fairly handily. Didn't lose a round. Easy work. You know, some people were saying, you know, it's that guy, yeah, he's got all these losses, but is he really that good? Well, never been stopped. And in his next fight, straight after, he goes and he stops the unbeaten Matty Harris. So he's going in there with TKV, who's coming off the back of a loss where he got that really bad cut. That's not an easy touch necessarily. You know, he's durable, but Dobyshenko could be one of those guys where if you do have any chinks in your armor, he will start to expose those. You know, I said it actually, I think, about one of my videos about Tyson Fury, when I was on about maybe him lulling Alexander Usyk into a false sense of security. One of the reasons I think that a lot of these prospects, some of it is down to the fact that they're just not good enough, right? Yes. But one reason I think that a lot of these prospects really, you know, I don't say fall by the wayside, because some of them lose and they go on to do things. But you look at someone like Matty Harris, who was getting a lot of hype. For them, going into fights against lower tier opponents, which Dobyshenko is, in all fairness, I mean, he's a journeyman. They must get it into their head. This is what I'm thinking. They have to get it into their head. This is going to be easy, you know. I'm going through all these guys. This is just another stopgap, you know. It's only going to get tough when I hit, you know, domestic, or it's only going to get tough when I hit European. And although they're the better fighter than the journeyman they're fighting, mentally they're not ready for a hard fight. You know, mentally they've kind of been like, you know, I've had harder spars than this. And then the fight is harder than they think, and they're like, well, damn, what do I do? And it becomes almost, you know, as much a mental battle as a physical, because they're thinking, well, I wasn't expecting this. What do I do? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? And you see them capitulating. And, you know, Matty Harris, I think that was something that happened to him. I really do. I think he expected an easy fight, was thinking, you know, all right, I'm the big Dan in here, I'm knocking guys out. And then he couldn't move Dobyshenko. I think he did drop him, though. But it was harder than he thought. And he just gassed very bad in that fight. Extraordinarily bad. In terms of the main event, Dan Aziz versus Joshua Buatsi, like I said, I'm doing a prediction video. I have it already done. Prediction video go out tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's a distance fight. I'd be very surprised if Dan Aziz, Joshua Buatsi, we see a stoppage. I'd be very surprised. Not to say it won't happen, but I don't see it. I see it as a distance fight. Morning time, I'll make that video live. Now, Eubank Sr. was on TalkSport today, and it's interesting. He's had a few things to say. Obviously, he's talking about is it his nephew, Harlem Eubank? I think it's his nephew, wanting him to fight Conor Benn, stuff like that. But he had his saying on his son, and he said about Eubank Jr., he says, Canelo Alvarez is the only person he's going to be able to fight now to redeem any type of respect for the fight in public. I know how you win respect. It's not beating Liam Smith. Junior, and you're probably doing this in Eubank Senior's accent too. Junior, you're never going to get back down to 160. I won't allow that. Canelo is your only way to win respect, and you cannot beat him. Wow. The only way you can beat him is if Daddy is next to you. Wow, Jesus Christ. Imagine saying that, you know, you can't beat him unless you're with me. I don't know. I actually felt that prior to him getting stopped by Liam Smith, him being away from his dad, we saw a bit more of the real Eubank Jr. And he started to, well, I think he still is, as people seem to like him. And I maintain that Liam Smith performance, the first fight, I don't want to take anything away from Liam Smith. I don't think I'm discrediting him. I'm not. Great combination, was able to finish the show. Great performance. But there has to have been some issues for Eubank Jr. stemming from the Conor Benn fight, which never happened. Because you got to bear in mind, that was pulled at basically the 11th hour. And Chris Eubank Jr. on the Saturday of the date that would have been the fight, made weight, did that video of him make a weight. He looked fairly drained, terribly drained. And then he takes a fortnight, you know, goes abroad, you know, gets rehydrated and stuff. But then he's straight back into another camp, cutting down to an artificially low weight. And you look at Eubank Jr., I mean, there isn't any weight to take off. He's super lean. So back-to-back camps where you're cutting yourself down to an artificially low weight, that's got to take it out of you. And I don't think he'd fully, you know, been able to recover from the Conor Benn weight cut when he went in there with Liam Smith. Now, the rematch happened, 8-9 months later? By then, he cut a very different figure. He looked a lot better, a lot more energy. Didn't make the same mistakes that he did. You know, some would say, you know, that was Bomac. I think Bomac is a very good coach, but I think as well as Bomac, it was just Eubank learning from his mistakes for once. And I like what I'm seeing from Eubank Jr., I really do. Because I always was someone who, I looked at Eubank Jr. and I always thought, mentally, does he have it? Because we've seen him freeze twice against Billy Joe and then against George Groves. And the George Groves one particularly. And I just remember thinking, he's not going to be able to cut it. And when he fought James DeGale, that was a shot to pieces, James DeGale. I didn't really take much from that. But for him to go in there against the man who beat him and instantly right that wrong and look good and learn from his mistakes, that took a lot of coming back from, especially a stoppage defeat like the first one. For me, I was looking at that thinking, okay, Eubank Jr., where was this Eubank Jr. 7-8 years ago? Where was he? I would have liked to have seen him. He could have done something. He really could have. We've seen the press conferences, the first press conference anyway, for Thurman and Tszyu, Rolly and Pitbull having the face-off. Pitbull's going to win that fight pretty easy. I'm just saying it now. Whatever odds Pitbull are at, if there's any way decent odds on Pitbull, like, imagine he's the underdog. I would be amazed if he's the underdog. He's winning that fight pretty easy. Keith Thurman, Tszyu, hate that fight. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Keith Thurman hasn't fought in 2 years and now he's fighting a guy at 155 Canelo weight. I don't know. And, you know, I think Keith Thurman, that'd be a tricky fight. It'd be a distance fight. I'd be surprised if Tszyu doesn't stop him. And that's not, I like Keith Thurman. I'd be surprised if Tszyu doesn't stop him. I really would. Alexander Usyk on Fury's size advantage. We are going to be the ones leaning on Fury to win this. I don't need to be heavy. I need to be fast and quick. You never see a fat wolf in the forest. And what I like what Alexander Usyk is saying, actually put that back on. What I like what Alexander Usyk is saying there, right, is you do need to be fast. You need to be quick. You don't need to put on excess muscle, excess weight moving up to heavyweight. It's so frustrating when you see fighters do that and they think like all of a sudden, you know, oh, now I've put the weight on, I'm going to be a beast. No, you're actually, especially if you're coming up from cruiserweight, you're taking away from a lot of the advantages you have. You're never going to have the reach of some of these big heavyweights, but you're going to have the speed. You never, no matter what, if you put on 40 pounds of muscle and you're 240 and you're fighting Joshua who's also 240, Joshua's going to be stronger. Doesn't matter if you're the same weight. He is going to be naturally stronger. There's nothing you can do about that. So I like it when you've someone like Usyk who's just focusing on his strengths rather than trying to, you know, overcompensate on the fact that, oh, I'm smaller than Fury. Yeah, most people are. Use your advantage, use your speed. I like what he's saying there. And, I always say that although heavyweights don't have to cut, there is an optimum fighting weight for most heavyweights. There is, and whenever I see heavyweights who, you can tell they're coming in maybe 20 pounds overweight, like someone like Dave Allen back in his day when he had his quote unquote prime, when he was fighting on those Eddie Hearn shows, he'd be weighing 250. He'd go on a crash diet and come in at 230 something. He'd look okay aesthetically, and then he'd be like, oh, no, I've no energy. Well, you just did a crash diet, you clown. Of course you're not going to feel good. Do it right, and you'll feel fine. And you're probably going to be hitting hard. You're probably going to be a lot better at 230, but doing it where you're just like, going, and God knows what he's weighing coming into camp, cutting down all that weight, it's like, yeah, I feel terrible. Like, of course you're going to feel terrible cutting down from... Even though you don't have to make weight a heavyweight, you should be trying to keep yourself close to fight weight, regardless. Unbelievable that people don't do it. And unbelievable that fighters coming from cruiser to heavy, they don't use their strengths, which is speed. Speed, punch output, movement. In Alexander Usyk's case, you pack on a load of muscle, you're just going to take that away. It's as simple as. Eddie Hearn has revealed that the appeal with Conor Ben's UCAD case will take place in a couple of weeks' time in February. It's February now. Wake me up when we get there. Let's see how he looks this weekend. He's fighting over in Vegas. Let's see how he looks this weekend. Again, that whole thing, wake me up when we get there. I'm sick of it now. It's dragged on for ages. Yeah, I seen the promo trailer they did for Usyk Fury. Looks good. I mean, I was already intrigued, certainly, so I'm still flipping intrigued. I want to see that fight. Naoya Inoue versus Lewis Neary for the undisputed super bantamweight world title, set for May 6th, which is a Monday. Tokyo Dome. Bob Arum has confirmed first boxing event, 55,000 since Mike Tyson fought Douglas in 1990. I love the fight. I think it's tremendous. I favour Inoue. If I was Luis Neary, I would be bricking it over there in Japan, because he is public enemy number one. I've said it before with Japanese boxing. He is public enemy number one. He is. I would be getting out of Dodge pretty damn quick if I was him. Crawford versus Spence 2. Looks like now it's not going to happen. It's claimed that's due to a variety of reasons, including the fact that Spence has undergone cataract surgery. I would like Errol Spence to call it a day. I would. I'd like him to call it a day. I think he's made money. I was going to say his faculties, but I do worry about that. That's why I'd like him to call it a day. It does free up Terence Crawford, which I will talk about now in a wee bit. I'll just carry on with some of the news. Daniel Dubois and Riyad Mari, I think is how you say that guy's name, ordered to fight for the vacant European Heavyweight Championship, vacated by Kabayel. Purse bid February 13th. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing Dubois fight for a European title, to be honest with you. That guy recently beat Tony Yoka. So it would give Daniel Dubois, I would imagine, I'd be picking him over Tony Yoka. In fact, I think he'd stop Tony Yoka, truth be told. So, yeah, look, why not? Would they do, I imagine the European title being defended in Saudi Arabia. Hey, we've seen the British title defended over there. So, the EBU would be like, yes, please. Yes, please, Turkey Al Sheikh. We will, Saudi Arabia, we'll make it honorary European for one day. Put our belt on the line. Give us that money. Kambosos versus Lomachenko. That is going to be taking place on May the 12th. Yeah, IBF title is on the line in the early hours of the morning in the UK. Like, right. I don't hate the fight. It's a decent fight. I favour Loma. But, like, I think the IBF should have been ordering Kambosos to fight Maxi Hughes in a rematch. Because Maxi Hughes beat Kambosos. As far as I'm concerned, Kambosos, since that Teofimo Lopez performance, has done nothing to cover himself in glory. He's been schooled twice by Devin Haney. And in my opinion, he was schooled as well again by Maxi Hughes. I mean, that was just... I don't know how anyone could score that fight other than the Maxi Hughes who watched it. Mind-boggling. Really is. Eddie Hearn has announced... Oh, yeah. So, last year, going back to kind of like September time, we were hearing talk that Matchroom were staging shows in Japan. Interesting. Eddie Hearn has said that they are relaunching the prize fighter tournament as part of their deal with Never Say Never to stage the fights in Japan moving forward. New format, 8-man tournament split over 3 separate fight nights. Interesting. With a $1 million prize for the winner. First edition is going to feature the likes of Kieran Conway, Mark Dickinson and Aaron McKenna. $1 million. That's insane. That's obviously that's life changing. You know, the original prize fighter, I think the prize was 30 grand, which is nothing to turn your nose up at. 30 grand is many people they make that in a year, nothing to turn your nose up at. But $1 million, damn, not too shabby. Not too shabby. I mean, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people there who are big super middleweights being like, what do I need to do to make middleweight? Come on. What do I need to do to make middleweight? £1 million? Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of them like that. An awful lot. Jake Paul has had his opponent announced, the guy called Ryan Borland. I think I've seen, I don't know, I don't think I've seen him, but I had a look at his box rec briefly, and I can't remember, but it wasn't a particularly good box rec. It wasn't a particularly good record. But let's just have a look. I always find these guys interesting just to see kind of who they fought and what's happened. He's 17-2 with 6 knockouts. He lost to a guy called Joe Hernandez, who didn't have a particularly good record. He won his last fight, to be fair, against Santorio Martin, but that was over a year ago. Was knocked out in a round by Israel Duffus, who, that name rings a bell. Why does that name ring a bell? Who has he fought that I recognise? Siobhan Clark, there you go. Richard Rivera, Charles Foster. Isn't he a light heavyweight? Yeah, that was a light heavyweight. Jesus. And this guy was able to knock this guy out in a couple of rounds. Damn. It's not exactly a stellar, although that was a long time ago, back in 2015, to be fair. So that's the guy Jake Paul going in there with now. All right, let's see how that goes. Oscar Valdez will face Liam Williams on March the 29th. Interesting. I always like watching a bit of Oscar Valdez. Now, I seen Shakur Stevenson claiming he's retired from boxing after hearing the WBO will order Navarrete versus Baranchek for the vacant IBF world title at lightweight. He said he's retiring. I don't buy it. That's why I haven't done it yet. I don't buy it. I think that's just him maybe looking for attention. The way Teofimo Lopez was doing it when he beat Josh Taylor, saying he's retired, but conveniently just not going to vacate that title. And yeah, I'm back. Well, you never left. Truth be told, Ryan Garcia has now declared that he is back in negotiations to fight Devin Haney. There you go. Ran out of ideas. Just fight him. Just fight him. Ryan Garcia, just fight him. You didn't get the roadie fight, so you're not going to be able to beat him to win a world title. Just fight Devin Haney. See what happens. I don't think you'll win, but prove me wrong. I'm there to be proven wrong. Fight Devin Haney. You know, all this, you know, oh, he doesn't bring numbers. Well, all the other avenues are gone. Yeah, I'll fight Devin Haney. Just fight him. See how you get on. Canelo Alvarez, right, this is what I want to talk about. So, the rumour mill is Canelo is likely to fight Jamal Charlo next and then Crawford in September. Yes, no Benavidez mentioned or Munguia. I don't accept him fighting Charlo. I won't accept that fight. I think it's a terrible fight. I think he's already fought one Charlo, who was a 154 pounder, gone up to middleweight. It was a stinker of a fight. Canelo won it easily. And now he's going to fight the other Charlo, who's had one fight now in nearly 3 years. Don't even know if he's ranked at middleweight or super middleweight. Don't know what's going on. I think he's still middleweight champion with the WBC, I think, anyway. And I don't want to see that fight. I'd rather see him fight Benavidez, who's his mandatory with the WBC. Why not just fight your mandatory? Seriously. And for Crawford, look, I love the Crawford fight. I do. I'm not going to lie, I love it. But Crawford's a welterweight. There is weight divisions for a reason. This is how high I rate Crawford. I would be picking Canelo to win because just the size would be too much of a factor. But I wouldn't rule Crawford out because that's how good and skilled Crawford is. Tremendous. But I want to see Canelo fight Benavidez. End of. That's the fight I want for Canelo Alvarez. He's his mandatory. I know the WBC have this, you know, love with certain fighters where it's like, you know, oh, for him, he can do what he likes. Oh, but for you, yeah, you've just fought a mandatory. Sure would be a shame if someone gives you another one. That's the WBC for you. Literally. Oh, you're planning on unifying, are you? Well, yeah, I just fought my mandatory. You think you're going to get a unification. That's what you think. But Canelo Alvarez, yeah, I don't fancy fighting Benavidez. Ha ha ha. He's your mandatory, but don't worry. Don't worry. He can wait. He's young. He can wait another few years. You know, you hold on to that title. That's what WBC are like. No, I don't want to see Canelo fight Charlo. I want to see him fight Benavidez. I want to see him fight the best at 160. I don't want to see him fight a guy. I love Terence Crawford, but I don't want to see him fight a guy who's made his name at 147, and I don't want to see him fight a guy who's been so inactive over the last few years. It's absolutely been painful. I want to see him fight the best at 168. Benavidez is one of the best in my opinion. Let's make that fight happen. He's your mandatory. You're both on the same platform. You're both on the same network. You both work with Al Heyman. Get it on. No reasons. None. That's what I got to say on that. Boy, this has gone on a while. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And for now, lads and lassies, I will leave you with that. Peace.